So, good evening. I thought I'm gonna make a little video on how this 560 SEL model year 89 W126 wound up in Kansas City from California. The picture you're looking at was the eBay auction, which ended November 3rd last year. It was put up for auction by a young fellow in San Diego, in Lakeview, California, I believe it is. It is in the suburb somewhere around San Diego. He had everything in there. So this was the first picture. And the first thing you can see immediately in this picture, when you look at this and you know a little bit about 126s, you have the visor up here. The wind visor is usually not a part normal for this vehicle. You have the chrome strips across the fenders over the wheelbase, and you have the white lenses for the turn signals, and you have the SEC grille without the star. Usually you have the star on it and the black color. That's the first things I saw. And when I looked at this, I said the bid was at $500, 332,000 miles or 330,000 miles. Paint looked fairly okay. He said he had no rust, which I believe in that climate down there. And let's go to the next picture. Here you can see the yellow fading on it, so you could see that the bumper was replaced but was not completely painted. You can see the chrome here, and also the chrome wheels are non-standard for this vehicle, for the W126. Then we got the rear, and here you can see you got the replacement one with the clear lens for the turn signal, and the original one with a yellow-orange lens for the turn signal. And you can see more of the paint missing there for poor paint job. And here the same thing. And now you can see very good in this picture immediately is that the rear is lower than the front. And that tells me, as someone who knows quite a bit about it, these cars, is that the hydraulic system is either inoperable or there's no fluid in it. Usually the first one is the case, that there's no fluid in it. And then once you put the fluid in it, the question is if the pump is still working and if the mechanism, the switch, the regulator in the back, which lowers and raises the vehicle, is still working or not. You can see the window tinting in here, and you can see the chrome strips on the doors with the chrome strips over the wheelbase. And you can see that this here is the standard wheel, which is that darker gray aluminum, and this is a chromed version of it. And what I did now is, when I got the cars, we put this one, we used that as the spare tire, and we used the spare tire, and I got 4 new tires on there. So that was it. So here you can see this. What you cannot see very well here is that there is a key mark there. Someone scratched along with a key, and you can hardly see this in these pictures. They weren't really touched up, but you can see a part here and a part here, here and here. I haven't removed those yet. So, and you can see the antenna is not out, or is stuck there. It's not fully in. And of course you can see the cracked seats. And you can see there's a cover on it, and there's also a cover over the steering wheel. Otherwise the car is fairly cleaned up, not a deep clean, but it was cleaned up to a presentable fact. And we had the original Becker radio in there. And then you can see there's some additional thing in there which turned out to be a remote control for a picture which is coming up. You can see this here, that is the remote control that was hardwired to a CD changer in the trunk. And here's a nicer picture. You can see that's all okay. So that part was good. Those switches were all right. And then you can see here, this is cracked. So I knew already that this car was sitting for a long time, and it was outdoors. Here you can see the big crack in the rear seat, and just dirt basically. You can see dirt underneath here. So he cleaned the car up, but he didn't do a very thorough cleaning. And I will get to this in a minute. And this is now the picture of the engine. And this is really the stuff when you look at auctions, this is what you want to see. The first thing is what you can see is the actuator, the cruise control actuator is missing. So someone took that out. Then you look over here, you can see this is the original hose or line for the air conditioning. That is there, but you can see rust, so that tells me it was sitting outside for quite some time. This is the kind of stuff you see when a vehicle is parked somewhere. And you can also see that the fuel hoses had been worked on, because that connection here and this connection from here to here is normally a crimped fuel line from the back all the way to the front. The rear end connects to the fuel filter output. That's the high pressure line, and goes up here, and that is crimped and goes to that metal piece which goes onto the fuel distributor. And the same with this part here. This has always been a clamped hose, and this is a crimped hose, usually in one piece from here to here. The ABS unit looked actually better in this picture, and here you can see there is no fluid in the reservoir for the hydraulic system. The power steering pump is here. The distributor cap looks newer, and this is another part you want to look at, the idle speed control valve. The idle speed control valve is very sensitive to moisture, and it will oxidize over time by just sitting. So these are all indications that the engine was most likely running, but he stated in the auction that the car was drivable. And you can also see there's no antifreeze in there. It turned out there was water in there, just regular water. And so that was basically the starting point. And you can see here, windshield wipers looked okay. The weather strip is here, the seal is there. All the parts you're looking for, the original oil dipstick is there. Fluid for the transmission fluid is there. So these things are all correct. This was my fan, which is the one which ran backwards. And I could see that they had changed the radiator, was replaced. So in this radiator hose here has a label on it, and that means that this hose was replaced too. So I knew that someone had worked on this vehicle. Of course, with 330,000 miles, you will have something. This here is the resistor which they added to it to bypass the non-functioning air conditioning system to make the fan run, this one here. And I had removed that wiring because it was just spliced in, so that is all gone today. This was going from here, so that little grommet, back to that 30 amp fuse for the inside fan, for the air conditioning fan, for the blower unit in there, for the control unit. There's a 30 amp fuse in a separate box here, and that's where they had wired this in. So as soon as you basically turned on the car, that fan would come on. So this was the starting point of this. Let me see if there was one more picture. Yeah, this is the Alpine radio, and you can see that because the car looked clean, you can see leaves in here. You can see rust discoloration and water standing here. That tells me one thing, is that the rear lights had been put in a long time ago, and that the seals on those leak. Most people think it's the trunk seal. It is not the trunk seal. The seals which leak are the ones which go around the rear lights. The water runs off here and here, and it will dribble on here, and it will travel down around and then go inside. And that's why they wind up in these two wheelbase areas on both sides. And this gasket was actually wood. So what they did is, what turned out later on, is that they actually took out that original light was damaged, and They put that in, but they had transferred the gasket because the replacement lights for Mercedes-Benz come without the gasket. The gaskets are $46 a piece. I bought both of them and they're replaced, and I have no more leaking trunk. That was one of the very first things I fixed. So this is all the stuff I knew about the car when I placed my final bid for $750. Of course, I did not know on what the quality of the repairs were. So that is documented in all the videos I have made since the car basically arrived here. Now we're going to take a look at the arrival pictures from the shipping company. This is when they picked it up on 11/10. You can see this. This was basically the condition the car was in when he picked it up. Victor was the driver's name, and he documented everything very well. This rust spot I have removed since it got here. I have taken those. Chrome stuff is all off, and we got new tires on the car all around it. The lights have been replaced, both front lights with the original orange ones. So is the two rear ones. They have the original. I have the original grill on there now, and I also changed the wiper, the front light wipers. That is all gone. See, this is the key scratch this car has in, and I haven't removed this yet. Someone did that to that young fellow, and that is kind of sad. I guess he lived in a more humble neighborhood. You can see this. He lived in this apartment with his mother, and he had bought this vehicle at an auction. So Victor documented all of this stuff, and I knew before the car got here the next day. It was shipped on 11/10, so it got here 11/12. So 2 days later, Victor got here to Kansas City, and he got me the car. And let me just show you this. So this here is now the picture. Let me do this here first. So this young fellow who sold that car on eBay had purchased this on an auction site which is called lifeauctionworld.com. And that car was listed twice. It was listed on June 13th, I believe. June 20th. And someone bought it, but they didn't pick it up, so the auction company relisted it on July 4th, 2020, last year. And this is where that young fellow bid on this car without knowing anything about it. And this was the actual auction. Winning bid is undisclosed. The starting bid was $300 on that. I think he paid $350 or $400 with the fees because they're quite high. If the buyer's premium was $165, so if he paid $300, then it was $465 he paid for the car. Here you can see the car. So this is how he got the car. This is now a better picture. You can see all the conditions here. That was basically it, the same way he bought it. And you can see there's a garden hose right here, so they had just rinsed this whole car off because it was so dusty. And you can see internally here the dust and the dirt and these mats. So he had taken out those floor mats, but everything else was basically the same. And he had covered this here with a wheel cover, and he had cleaned that off. Of course, you can see how dusty that car actually was. And that's what I had anticipated when I looked at the eBay pictures. And this was the rear side, so it was basically exactly as it is here. This is just purling water here. I mean, the car was dirty. Now, the way this car wound up at the auction site starts now at this place here. Starts with this lady here. Let me see the earliest photo. This was the original owner here, the lady. She had bought this car in early 2008 from another fellow who was the third owner. So she was actually the fourth owner. This is in Los Angeles, in central Los Angeles, right smack dead in the middle where this is. And at this point, that car was still running. This was when we were looking the other day in the other video at the mileage. So she was around 270,000 miles. I would say, yeah, I put it in here, 276 at 971. I couldn't find a Google Earth picture from that area in 2001, 2010, so I went to 2011. And then the reason why I'm showing you this is I'm going to show you how the car was stored and who worked on the car, because this is all going to become very apparent. So this was, I said, in 2012, right, when the car had 312,000 miles, they did the timing chain repair. And now you look, the lady lives here, and look what happened to this property here. The owner had changed, the grass is gone, so is the trees, but you got now 1, 2, 3, 4 cars sitting out there in the yard and the shop. I didn't take a picture of the street view, but you can see this. This is a repair facility for FARC. They basically converted this into a shop, repair shop. So her car was fixed by this person who owns this property here and runs this car business. That I'm very certain, because now if we go to the time period where, let me see, this 2017, this was when the speedometer was already stuck the year later at 403 miles. You see a vehicle now stored here under this top. And this is a very long vehicle compared to all the other ones. And you can see the bulging a little bit on top there from that sunroof, which is on top. Those were the people who worked on that car since 2011 or 2012, since they took over that property. In the original, yeah, this one here, let me see. And then, whoops. Let me just see this here. Which one was the 2011 here? In 2011, there was grass here, but there were no car repairs, nothing. There was a fence here. So all of this changed after 2011. And that's when these people started to run their car repair business out of there. So the car was stationary here in 2017. And then we go to the 2018 picture. In 2018, the car is still sitting here. It has Zach now in here. That top has taken on that shape. So this car was taken out periodically. They did a little bit of work on it, and that's how you wound up with this chrome stuff and the new, all of the new non-Mercedes-Benz parts basically were put on after 2014, including that Fabi chain in 2012 at the 312,000 miles was done here. I'm very certain. You can see all of the stuff what they're working on. And then you go to the picture in 2021, and you can see the car under the top has disappeared, because by that time it was already in Kansas City. And so this is how I know that the car now for sure has been sitting on it. And this is why we have no service records of the vehicle from Mercedes-Benz, because it was this fellow here. I don't know if it was a guy or gal. I would guess it was a guy who worked on this. I have to say one thing, is that person, to get that Fabi chain in and to get the car running without fixing the donuts, the vacuum leaks, and putting a gasket in there because he had a water leak on there, not using a Mercedes-Benz gasket for the lower intake manifold or the upper intake manifold where it connects to the heads on both sides. He had silicone in there. I don't know if you saw that in the pictures where I do the cleaning of the upper lower intake manifold in my self-made parts cleaner with the gasoline. There's rectangular openings on each side of the upper intake manifold, and those are for the water, for the cooling water. And you can see there was red silicone RTV inside, and that was those parts which were blown out of the gaskets, which I had shown in the other video. I can urge you only, if it comes to the engine, anything in the engine compartment has to do with the engine or the transmission, buy only Mercedes-Benz parts, because the gaskets don't fit right, they don't seal right unless they're Mercedes-Benz. The Mercedes-Benz ones, they have a special RTV silicone already on the gasket, which will flatten out when you put them on. You have to replace them every time you do it. The same is for the head covers, head gaskets, any gasket, any O-ring, any type of seal, any type of anything that has to do with the engine. Do yourself a favor and go with Mercedes-Benz parts. A car like this, which I picked up for $750 on eBay, and I paid $1,200, a little bit less for shipping it from San Diego. So this is in Los Angeles. That lady here donated the car to the Kidney Foundation, or to a non-profit foundation, I should say. Here she is, this lady here. She donated that vehicle. Then it went from her garage, it got fixed, and it probably started to vacuum leak more and more, and you had this problem. They tried to fix this, that, and the other thing. They tried to fix the cooling system. They put that new radiator in there, which is aftermarket too. Now you can't get the original Bear anymore. Now you can buy only this one, the Nissan one. So I bought another one because this one had become already brittle on that upper pipe there. That's why I had the RTV compound in there, which you see in the video is on the older one, which they put in, because that little hose connector had broken off when I unfortunately hit it. I didn't even hit it very hard. But this is what you can expect with these finds when the car is not stored properly. So $750 eBay, $1,200 shipping, $1,950, $2,000, and I got about, I would say, $10,000 to $12,000 in parts in this car at this point. So we're looking at $14,000. When I bought my 420 SEL back in '96, in January 5th, 1996, the car was 7 years old, had 40,000 miles on it. I paid $22,000 for it. So I'm still $10,000 below my 420 SEL, what I bought as second owner, what I paid for. But I still have some more money to be put in there. I would expect that the total repair, with when it's all said and done, is going to be $15,000 to $20,000. Including the shipping and the purchase of the car itself. Now, you can go out and buy a car for $10,000 or $15,000 on eBay, which is all polished up, but make sure you look in the engine, at the engine. If you see any parts in there, especially idle speed control valve, if they have any form of white oxidation or oxidation on it, or like that hose I pointed out for the air conditioning where you can see rust, this is an indication that the car was not garaged. So no matter how nice the car looks on the inside, how nicely they polished it, if they gave them the showroom finish and the white glove treatment, if you see anything of oxidation inside the engine compartment, you know until that car got to the dealership, was sitting outside. And that means either rust, or in California, Arizona, New Mexico, all of these hot states, primarily dried out rubber and dried out plastic everywhere. And that will set the stage for what you will have to do, and then you will wind up basically doing, to a more or less a degree, of what I did. The rubber parts, from my experience, last in this type of climate, like in California, Southern California and Arizona, 10 years. So if you get a car out of Arizona or California, these parts will have to be replaced no matter what. Every 10 years you're going to go through this. And what I mean by that is the donuts, all of the O-rings and everything else associated with vacuum injector seats, and this, that, and the other thing. And the same in the interior cabin, with the ventilation system. All of these flap actuators, which are vacuum driven, they have a rubber membrane in there. I just ordered all 6 of them, and I'm gonna have them coming in because they survived somehow this whole thing. but they are starting to leak now because it is just about the time in the age, and now they're being operated because I got the air conditioning to work. And so I have to replace those and the little elbows where those vacuum connections connect together onto the actuators and down to that distribution switch or that vacuum switch thing inside that middle console. They all wear out, become brittle, and they're starting to leak, and that causes a problem with your engine vacuum because that system has to be absolutely tight with the booster, the brake booster, that there's absolutely no vacuum leak. So this is kind of what sums it up. So if you're thinking about buying a Benz between $5,000 to $10,000 and you have any signs of corrosion whatsoever on any part inside the engine, and the first indicator for that is the most sensitive one to being outdoors is the idle speed control valve, the ICV. That will tell you the story no matter what anyone else says. They, for whatever reason, it is the metal they're using on the outer part which does not like to be exposed to weather, hot weather, cold weather, climate, anything. They like to be in a fairly controlled, humidity controlled environment, and then they will be happy and they won't change their appearance. But if you see it, and as more you see of it, as longer the car set somewhere, and that will set the stage. So even when you pay $5,000 or $10,000, when you see oxidation, corrosion, or white oxidation kind of stuff on these aluminum slash messing, what is it, the alloys they're using in that engine compartment, basically then you know the car had been sitting for a substantial amount of time. I would say 2+ years somewhere, either out on the street in a driveway or in a lot like this with a tarp over it, maybe under a canopy, who knows. And then you can expect that you will have problems as soon as you start driving a car which sat for that long of a time. All of the parts which have worked until then, they will come apart. They will fall apart unless you do a complete job and go through everything first. And I'm pretty much done with this. Everything what could go wrong in the last, I'm close to 2,000 miles now since I got the car more or less going, and I got the speedometer fixed. That's why I knew that the mileage here, the what we had on there, the 330,403 miles, was not very much. The young fellow who sold me that car said to me, he drove the car like 3 or 4 times, which I believe. He took the car out, he has a dog, a husky, and he took the husky to the dog groomer once. I had dog here and there, and then he probably realized that he had gone in over his head in this whole thing. And that was pretty much it, I mean, you can't blame the guy. He was 20 or 21, and I thought it was pretty brave, just barely out of high school, working. I think he works for Amazon out there. He wanted to buy a car. He looked at the auction. He thought he liked it, and he went for it, and then he wound up with this thing and very little experience. So this is the story of this car. It's set for probably since 2014, 6 years for the better part. Then it was barely driven by that young fellow who owned it from July 4th basically until November 3rd. So that's not even 3 months. July, August, September, October. Yeah, 3 months. You can say it. And then I got it here and it was running basically. And then the rest is history, as they say, as you can watch this in the videos which I had documented. But this is for other young people who may be watching this, is when you buy a car like this, which cost originally in 1989 $80,000 or $90,000, Then they went up to 125,000, 150,000 in the 1990s. Um, you're looking at parts cost of probably between $5,000 to $15,000. No matter really what you pay for the car, whether you pay $700, $300, or $5,000, you will be replacing things. The cars which are offered today, these 560s in the 126s, the SELs, the long wheelbase, which are in absolute mint condition inside out and absolutely basically factory new, they're starting at $60,000. At 60,000. So this is what you're looking at. So I can go and probably spend another $15,000 on it, 25, 30,000, and get the car completely into a factory new shape, and then put them up for sale for 60,000. This is the relationship, but this was not my objective. I was trying to get a 126 going, either a 420 or 560. In this case, you see I got a 560, which I can drive every day. So I can go to the store, or I can drive across town, Kansas City, if I need to go somewhere, see a friend, or I want to drive out to Tennessee to visit another friend of mine. And I have some property out in the Tennessee, on the Tennessee River. So eventually I will be traveling forwards and backwards. And I needed a dependable vehicle. And these cars are, if they're maintained. They say, well, Mercedes-Benz diesel, they will run 1 million miles. They sure will, but only if you maintain them, and that means everything. Now, the other thing I said earlier with the Mercedes-Benz parts, I urged you to get them for your engine. Say like in the interior, if you're gonna get an interior switch from Fabi or Miley or one of those other Euro company, and you put them in for your windows or for the loudspeaker, fader, front, rear, that really doesn't make a big difference. You don't have to go out and spend $80 on a window switch from Mercedes-Benz. Those will work, as often as they're pushed to the seat heater button and that kind of stuff. Or you can get a used one from eBay. That really doesn't make any difference. But the things where gaskets, O-rings is involved, precision parts, machine parts like the sprockets, anything engine, hydraulic system, steering related stuff, that is, do yourself a favor and buy only Mercedes-Benz. And the same is with the transmission. And I guess with this I have pretty much shared the story as far as I knew. It kind of reaffirmed things what I had suspected. I've never really looked at this stuff, and I just found these pictures here yesterday from the auction. I thought I may have the chance to actually find the auction pictures, of the original auction here. And I sure did. I did some searching, and I found in my paperwork here, it was said that the auctioneer is Otay Auto Auctions. That was the company who got the Otay Auto Auction in San Diego. They got this vehicle from that non-profit where that lady donated that car to in turn for a tax write-off. I guess that's what the deal was. Anyway, it says here Title T. That means clear T title, donation. And shipping payment due, got paid cash on Tuesday. All right, not later than 2. So I guess in that first auction they had there on June 20th, they didn't sell it. Their starting price up here was an interesting story. So this is how the car came about, got here, who owned it before, who did the work, who put the Fabi stuff in. Well, now it was the neighbor, with the backyard mechanic, and I would say the fellow did a pretty decent job. If you think about it, working out the shop he got there and doing all of the stuff, he sure did a pretty good job because he got the engine to run. Anyway, you have a good night, and I will be having more videos here as soon as I get parts. Calipers are coming, CV joint boots are coming, We got the air conditioning actuator flaps, 6 of them, plus all other stuff coming, so that's going to be a video. And then the sprockets, once the camshaft sprockets get here, we will finalize the camshaft deal up there with the alignment, and everything else what comes with it. You have a good night.